actually you can have a very profound effect on global GDP by simply doing the right things, right? And I think what you've created, the reality check analysis, is a way to do that. It's like going to map your genome at the doctor, and so that you can understand where you are or where you aren't and how you can actually fix that. It's actually quite stimulative. You can think of it as this ultimate alpha moment. When the world is always chasing alpha in the stock market and the bond market, this will outperform everything, very predictably.
Welcome to Reality Check with Élena, a video podcast to inspire you. We challenge mainstream narratives and promote critical thinking by revealing the naked, often inconvenient reality on the ground. In this episode, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. with Todd Morley, leader in structuring technology-driven infrastructure finance. He is co-founder of Guggenheim Partners and more recently, founder of Diatoms. Hi, Todd. How are you? Thank you very much for coming today and meeting us in the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C.
How appropriate.
How appropriate indeed.
Yes, thank you.
A lot of what we want to do in 70% informals start from a top-down change, right? And what more appropriate than being here?
The center of policy.
The center of policy, the center of politics. But at the same time, a center that does not fully understand and recognizes what I've been calling, what you've been calling, what we've been communicating all these years, informality. But, I'd love for you to share with me again and with our audience, how did you come across this whole concept of importance of security, informality?
Well, I came across it by reading your book, and I was blown away by, how powerful it is, right? Just endorsing property rights in a very simple sense for people. Endorsing property rights and taking these assets that are really not part of a system.
Correct.
Right? They're unbanked, the people are unbanked, and making them part of a system. And your amazing work in Peru is the greatest testament to that, the appreciation in land prices and quality of living and health standards and quality of food and water. All of that came because now people have assets that they can own and pledge and take care of. The other thing was that how simple it is, right? So we can't just cure cancer, but with the stroke of a pen, you can create a land registry. Right? And so actually you can have a very profound effect on global GDP by simply doing the right things. Right? And I think what you've created, the reality check analysis, is a way to do that. It's like going to map your genome at the doctor, and so that you can understand where you are or where you aren't and how you can actually fix that quickly if the intention is to fix it. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places in the world who don't really they want to keep people in poverty and uneducated, which is sad. But if you want to fix it, this is something you can fix. And so it's actually quite elegant, powerful, and simple at the same time.
Very pointed, thorough, simple, and, inclusive. You just said it all. You are a person that is understanding very, very well how global financial markets work. And what is impressive to me is that you're not really that squared individual that just looks at what is counted in specific formulas, but you try to understand how you can incorporate more assets, how can you make more fluid the existence of funding that is out there, and how can you invest it so you can, as a matter of fact, increase its potency. And I recall you were talking to me about your engagement with Guggenheim Partners. So do you want to share? I
was one of three co-founders there, but Guggenheim in the late 90s, 1997, we started Guggenheim in 99, 2000, something like that. And they had just completed the rollout of the Bilbao Museum. And so the Bilbao Museum might be thought of in parallel to what you did in Peru, right? Because the museum endorsed the use of its brand and part of its collection to bring Frank Gehry in and create this spectacular museum, right? But if you think about it, it's a twisted titanium sculpture with paintings inside.
Correct.
And so that then created a city. And they're a nonprofit, so they should have financed the city. It's actually quite predictable what will happen. And so the museum, in many ways, is the effect of granting property rights. It's the effect of the land registry. When you went from 100,000 titles to 17 million 2 years after your work began, it's very predictable that they are now going to have live assets, capital assets. They're going to need better roads, better food, bridges, more energy, renewable energy. And so it's actually quite so stimulative. You can think of it as this ultimate alpha moment. When the world is always chasing alpha in the stock market and the bond market, this will outperform everything very predictably.
So imagine now how you bring the two together, which is what is absolutely extraordinary. How you can bring the two together. So I was just recently in Peru, taking testimony from the people that were living on a shanty town. Yeah, it was all. How can I express it so people can understand? The best way to say it was just basically dirt. And in Lima, there is not even proper dirt. They call it dead earth, because it's actually sand.
Right.
So they live on sand, and then they put like a bamboo type of structure on top.
No roof.
Plastic, blue plastic around to hold them from the cold at night. And one piece of property of 90 square meters, we had to value it because I was trying to incorporate them in a World Bank project. So I had to figure out the cost benefit analysis and so on. So I figured out that it was about $12. Of course, you need to be paid, actually. It should have been negative, right, to get there. It would take you forever. There was no water, no roads, no ability to construct. For any utilities, impossible to have. No connection with the government. And of course, all of these places were taken over by para-governmental organizations, which were, people call them terrorists. They were radical groups. Okay, they were giving security to these guys. And now I go back there and I see exactly what you're talking about. First of all, there is no relationship. There's not even an evolutionary continuity. You cannot have one bit that reminds you of where it was 15 years ago. High rises, roads, markets, roofs everywhere, construction everywhere. Nightclubs, saunas, courthouses, gyms. And they keep saying, and we need more. We need better infrastructure because we know we can have it.
Right.
So imagine bringing your funding abilities and your investment. But you know what is the problem? The way I'm presenting you this and you get it, every time I present it to governments of the countries that actually suffer from this type of elements, they don't get it. So if you were to go and provide funding to these places, you would have to go through a government structure, right?
Well, I think whether they get it or not, some don't want to get it. Some benefit from keeping people down. They get federal stipends, they get, UN funding, whatever it is, and it's not really making it to the people, right? And so there's weird incentives in some cases to not actually help people, which is sad. But if you want to help people, right, it's your intention to truly help people, just look at the United States, right? We weren't born with a mortgage market.
Correct.
83% of our GDP is consumption. Consumption flows from the home. So by creating the conditions, as you have in Peru, where people can own assets and prove that they own assets, embracing property rights, embracing the rule of law, embracing contractual law, now you can activate assets because you can borrow against them to get a roof. You can create surpluses on the farm. You can hypothecate. And without those things, then everybody's a squatter and you can't prove that you own anything. If you take the U.S. has the greatest example in the history of humanity about how to grow an economy. We had a constitution that still holds this day, and we have property rights and the rule of law. And that's what gets us out of things like the 08-09 housing bust, right? We had 9 million unsold houses. If you had held an auction to the world and said you're an automatic citizen by buying a house, it would have been sold out. That was a point made by the Milken Institute in 2009. And without it, we wouldn't have the consumption, because you couldn't borrow, you couldn't buy a house, you couldn't buy a Ford motor car and a GE refrigerator. You just couldn't do it. So the $24 trillion economy that we have wouldn't exist. So that's what people misunderstand. They say securitization in the mortgage market and these greedy bankers, they went overboard, to be sure, but the overall effect of creating Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in Wall Street and the liquidity that comes from bond markets has been profound. Without the rule of law, without property rights, you can't do that.
Okay, now a few people may ask, Élena, because I have been asked, even in Peru, but sure, all this is good because people feel secure and everything, but the banking system works with this digital banking, Fintech, where basically you have a non-guaranteed loan. My response is a non-guaranteed loan is for like a very short period of time with very high interest rate. And that is not really the basis of any modern economy. Tell me your view.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to say that government agencies alone, Fannie and Freddie, or public companies,
they were the originators because of the crack.
But they're sort of public-private. But what governments at least speak to is the power of the public-private partnership, right? The P3, and they should want that. The problem is they consider themselves to be too important in that calculation. Mm-hmm. I like to tease and say it's the private public, because the private sector is awash with capital. Mm-hmm. The public sector can grant assets. Mm-hmm. It can grant its credit rating, on which you can then build a capital structure. And so actually they should want to do that, because that is what creates jobs, better healthcare system, better roads, everything. And so they just have to imagine that there's more prosperity if they embrace this, not less.
But I think, though, all governments are 4 to 5 years long, and they all feel that they don't really know how to do it, and it sounds too complicated. And Élena is talking about something that God knows how long it's going to take. It didn't take too long. It took like 2.5 years for everything to turn around. But it requires strength, it requires vision, and it requires persistence.
I think it requires philosophy. If you suddenly had a bunch of money, and you call up Wall Street and you say, I'd like to open an account, and I just want to start investing, it won't be long before you lose a lot of it.
Now, one of the things I noticed, my strong, is when we tried to apply RCA, reality check, it was all very much based on, 1 point, one laser beam. We want to have people feel secure and proud of their existence, and we want to have them feel secure and proud of the existence of whatever thing belongs to them. And it doesn't have to be a zillion things, but whatever they choose that it belongs to them, right? It belongs to them. If they bought it, it belongs to them. And that required a lot of discipline as well. Because there are a lot of special interests that get involved, and some of them cover themselves with the neo-Marxists, some others cover themselves with traditional rights of groups of people, So that was probably one of the friction point I was noticing. We needed to have a lot of discipline for us to actually move ahead. But we did the fantastic work. Peru was great. We did additionally good work in other countries like Bulgaria, Middle East. Believe it or not, we did some good work there. I wanted to ask you, how do you vision, what is your view of the world today? Forget about politics and elections.
So back to the Bilbao. It was such a huge event, and it seems so obvious, right? You take this spaceship, the museum, and drop it into an old city, and now that city can compete with other places like Paris and Rome and London. Who would have ever thought that? It's an industrial city, right? And so 80 governments signed up for the Guggenheim Bilbao effect. There were waiting online to get a museum. Only one was granted to Abu Dhabi, and that's only just now beginning, and they have lots of money, but the private sector can always fund those things.
Private sector
80
percent.
governments. So 80 governments should be waiting for RCA and for the economic effect that your work can produce.
We should do it together.
You've created the blueprint, right? Think of it as an economic master plan. Bringing finance with that is so powerful. And I just think we need to package it a little more forcefully and get it out there and create the Bilbao effect. Really, I mean, that's what it is, except you're doing it across the whole country, not one city.
I can't wait to take you to Peru.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to take you there. And I cannot wait to show you the difference.
I've seen the TEDx talks. I
Yeah,
completely get it.
Yeah, of course, because you're a bright guy and you get it. It's incredible. The crew that came with me, they're all from Latin America. And they say, what's this big deal about informality? I mean, we have it everywhere. We have it around the corner. We have it in front of us. We have it behind us. Then they go there, and the first thing they were telling me, which I even had not noticed, Élena, the roads are so clean. The pedestrian streets are so clean. How do they keep them clean? I said, there is no dictatorship law that tells them that if you don't clean your road, you're going to be in prison. People feel proud. People feel proud of their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And now these shanty towns that I was telling you, that now have the sauna and the shanty town, are now, they have turned into being districts. So the $12 valued home that I was telling you before, which was basically on a piece of dirt and some bamboo thing without a roof, yeah, was just sold $500,000. This is a quantum leap. This is your alpha right there. There is no, people tell me, what is the return you get from your investment? I'm like, well, there is no more return. We're like moving from Neanderthals to Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
We're like, it's a complete different set.
Well, your work is incredibly visionary, incredibly important, and we need to be more forceful and take this message out and also add capital to it. All right. So, for instance, in the Guggenheim Museum case, they had 80 governments because they thought that governments had the money. We're the only people who had the money. It's not true. The private sector has all the money. The private sector's been insolvent, bankrupt for many years. Look at California.
You mean the government?
Governments are insolvent. And so they don't have money. Right? California can't do a Bilbao type thing because they don't have money to do it. Right? And so it has to be packaged the right way. I think that it's a soft sell to get people to buy into this, but again, like we saw with Bilbao, 80 governments signed up quickly. Where's my museum?
Where's my museum?
And it wasn't because they're all art fans. It was the power of economic development.
Which is what happened when we did this work in Latin America. We had others that requested it. So the World Bank reproduced the same type of project. They called it projects. It didn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
Because it just copy-pasted the words without actually doing RCA.
Yeah, that's critical.
That
critical. Analysis, the reality check analysis is critical. It's like going to the doctor and just operating on your knee. Like, no. We need to start at the top here. We need a full exam. What is your genetic predisposition? What are you allergic to? How do we really get at this?
And what do you think about ESG? Because everybody is like on ESG these days.
I think ESG is already being abandoned by the people who endorsed it, which are mutual funds. It basically became a marketing tool to market to young people, to think about some of the ills of the world. Not that that's bad, but that we should all hold ourselves to a higher standard, which is, I think, mathematically defending positive social impact, right? So you took these favelas, you can mathematically measure a house that went from $12 to $500,000. That's positive social impact.
Oh, well.
Real roads.
Child labor reduced in just by giving people rights, was reduced by 27% overnight.
Yeah.
You know why? People did not have to leave their kid at home to take care of the house.
Right.
So when the parents or the adults were going out to work, they would leave a child with the elder at home, and of course, the child had to be adding to the income. So instead of the child going to school, the child would actually stay home and add income,
Right.
Whatever, artifacts or whatever.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's that vicious circle, and they can't get out. No, but that's how profound this work is, and I think it just needs to be further endorsed. I think the documentary is going to be very important. Everybody should support this and get this out in a peaceful, creative way so that governments can understand that this is a really good thing. It's not a takeover of their economy. It's just a boost that they can do quickly with the stroke of a pen. It doesn't require a revolution. It doesn't require really fancy cures for things.
And it's actually good for everybody because people feel that they lose part of their benefit and their prosperity for when others are receiving it.
Yeah.
And the point is, if 70% of the world is informal and taking over the 30%, if we do not take care of that ourselves, we will not exist much more longer. I mean, this is actually what has happened in Germany, in the European Union, the first world, in the United States, what I call the new poor. Out of a sudden, suddenly people were part of the middle class and they're falling out of it and they don't know how to put themselves back in. And it's very different to have been born in the margins because you have all the antibodies and you know how to survive it. You were always in the streets. It's very different to have fallen out of it while you were well brought up kind of thing. It's hard for you to survive it.
And I think what governments are doing are just printing money and throwing the money at social programs. It's missing the private sector part of it.
Correct.
And so that is something that has to be addressed. And I think if just a couple more countries understand what you did in Peru, hopefully we get a line of 80 other governments who would like the same.
Well, Todd, I really want to thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to more.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. Support us with a donation. Every bit helps us keep this movement going.